Hey guys, welcome back to ProgramHub. My name is Vishal, and in this episode of ProgramHub, we are going to answer a very important question that should you learn C++ in 2020 or not? So this is the most often asked question in our ProgramHub community that most often people ask us like whether I should learn C++ in 2020 or not. So today we thought to answer this question directly. Now, today we are going to answer this question that whether you should make up a decision or a choice to learn C++ in 2020. But before diving into the question of like whether you should learn C++ or not, I would like you all to know that what is C++ because most of you might be beginners into programming and might be searching for an answer that whether I should learn C++ as a beginner into programming or not. So the answer is very simple to this. C++ is an introductory programming language that is most often taught to the beginners of programming in most of the schools and colleges around the world. Now, if we talk about C++, why is it taught to the beginners of programming? The reason for that is like it's simple to understand and it's simple to implement. And the second primary reason is that logics, okay? It teaches the logics and concepts of programming very much efficiently. So I don't mean to say that any other programming language won't teach you the logics and the concepts of programming, but C++ is quite very easy to understand and it's very easy to learn even, and it teaches you the most of the logics and most of the concepts about programming very much efficiently and very much easily. So that is the reason like it's been taught to the programmers around the world who are like trying to begin up their career into programming. Okay, so let's get ahead and let's try to understand what is the trend of C++ as of now. Like before answering up the question, I would like you all to show up the trend. What is the trend for C++? So let's get to the Google Trends and try to understand it. So as you can see over here, the interest for C++ is declining throughout the time from 2004 to like till date. The interest is declining, and if you compare this language to some other language like Python, if we compare this to Python, now we can see that in comparison to Python, C++ is like a very much like we can say it's not even like half of like Python as much as people are interested into Python, and this is in worldwide data by the way. Now if we even consider take like let's take one more language, that is JavaScript. That's also a very famous language nowadays. So if we even consider C++, Python and JavaScript, so if we take up the comparison over here, we can see that like C++ is like merely used and like people are merely interested into C++, rather like people are most interested into JavaScript and Python, and obviously that is because JavaScript and Python is the trend for today. That shows the interest towards C++ is overall declining. Now, answering the question whether you should learn or not. So before like answering the question like whether you should not learn, I will answer the question why you should learn C++. Now, look at this very important thing like C++ teaches you a better logical understanding behind programming. And by this, what do I mean? When you learn C++, as C++ is a very basic language that stays very close to the hardware. Okay, it stays very close to the hardware, and when you start to learn C++, it teaches you the most efficient things and like most core things about programming, like memory management, like what are the arrays, what are pointers, and what is memory allocation. So it teaches you very much minute things about programming that you cannot learn into the modern programming languages like Python or JavaScript. So they don't just bother about like memory management and those all things. But C++ is a very basic level of programming language, and that's the reason like it stays very close to the hardware functionalities. And if you ever want to become a programmer who would be developing programs or softwares for like microcontrollers, CPU based systems, or machine simulations, embedded system, robotics, or anything else. So if you're trying to make up some programs, or if you want to become a developer for programs like that would be more hardware based rather than just being software based or more advanced or like something into machine learning and so on. So if you're trying to become a developer for very much hardware based like systems, so for that C++ is very much useful, because still most of the appliances and into the robotics world, into microcontrollers, C++ is still used, because it handles the memory and it handles the logics very much well, other than very other modern languages. And if we try to understand like why you shouldn't learn C++, then the answer is probably web development and mobile development. So if you ever want to become web developer, so answering this question, like if you ever want to become a web developer in your life, so you will not be using C++ anywhere. Yes, you will not be using C++ anywhere. So this is a clear no for becoming a web developer. If you ever want to become a web developer in your life, so I would say a clear no for you. So do not learn C++. Also, if you want to become a developer for Android or iOS, I would say once again, it's a clear no for these both. And the reason for that is, like, if you want to become a developer for websites or web developer for web applications, so you might or you should be learning something as JavaScript. So JavaScript will be more useful for you rather than learning C++. And if you're trying to become a mobile developer, so you should learn something as Java, right? Because Android uses Java, or most recently the most recent language that is being used in Android is Kotlin. So you should either be learning Java or Kotlin if you want to become a mobile developer into Android. Whereas if considered iOS development, so for iOS development also we never use C++, so it's a clear no for becoming an iOS developer. And if you want to become an iOS developer, by the way, so you should must be learning like languages like Swift. And like prior to Swift, Objective C was being used, but like the most latest thing that is being used for iOS development is Swift language, so you must be learning something like Swift. So if you ever want to become a web developer or Android or iOS developer, so it's a clear no for you, like you should not learn C++. But if you want to become like a developer who is very much close to the hardwares, like if you want to get into robotics or embedded systems, or if you want to get into like game control system or CPU based applications, so you must get into C++. Now let's get ahead like to the question, like most often what is asked to us, like, will learning any other language affect my skills? Absolutely not. A language never determines your logical and your programming skills. So even if you don't learn C++, or you take up a decision to learn some modern programming languages like, let's say, Python or JavaScript, that is more modern programming languages and that handles the most of the things very much easily. Okay, so if you take up a decision to learn Python or JavaScript, so in no way, it will in no way affect your programming skills or your logical skills for programming. So look over here, like this is a very important question, and like I never feel that any programming language can affect your logical skills or your programming skills. So you might take up a decision to learn any programming language, okay, you might take up a decision to learn any programming language, but still your logical and programming skills will be the same. But yes, of course, C++ has some advantage over like memory management and those all things, like it makes you understand more functional things about programming and into the hardware based things. So every programming language, by the way, has some pros and some cons, but in no way it will like affect your programming skills. So you can, if you want to get into Python or JavaScript or into any other more modern programming language, so yes, it's and definitely yes, you can move on to that language like without choosing C++. It's not absolutely mandatory to learn C++. Make it a point, it's not mandatory to learn C++. Okay, and this is a very important point, by the way. So let's get ahead to the final verdict, like what do I say as the final verdict, that whether you should learn or whether you should not learn. So as a final verdict, it depends. It depends clearly, like yes, if you want to get into like development to that is very close to the hardware systems, so it's in yes for them. and it's a no for them who want to get into web development or mobile development. So it depends. I will say it is an yes, like if you have a certain goals or if you're still searching. So still searching, by the term still searching, I will mean that if you haven't found it yet, like if you don't know yet like whether do you want to become a web developer or mobile developer, and you are still searching for yourself like what should I become in my life, then I would say like please learn C++. If you're still searching, if you still don't know like whether you should be an web developer or not, or whether you should be a mobile developer or not, so do learn C++ because it will teach you very much important things about like important things about programming, and it will help you increase your logical skills about programming. Okay, so do learn if you're still searching, or if you have a certain goals like if you want to get into robotics or anything like that. And it's a clear no for anyone who is trying to get into web development and mobile development. So you can go with JavaScript and Python. And like most often this is also a question asked to me like whether I should go with JavaScript or Python. So I'm really high on JavaScript. I like recommend JavaScript very much. And by the way, if you want to get a course for JavaScript, a premium course for JavaScript, we have that into the link into the description below. You can find the premium course link into the description below for JavaScript, and that's by the way a really amazing course. So JavaScript will be my final verdict like if you do not want to go with C++. But whole in all, the answer depends. It depends. Now that's it for the day. So if you like the video, please hit the thumbs up button, and if you have any more such questions, please comment down, and for more such videos do subscribe to ProgramHub. Till then, goodbye and meet you in the next video.